What's up, my friend? Happy to see you here. New visitor? Smash that subscribe button and share this video. It really boosts the channel. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment. Time to begin. Maya grew up in a tightly woven community, the kind of place where neighbors called each other by name, and every milestone, no matter how small, felt like a collective victory. Her father spent his days laying bricks. Her mother pieced together garments at a sewing table. From a young age, Maya absorbed the quiet lesson that meaningful goals demand relentless effort. Her ambition to practice medicine took root early, ignited by a vivid moment, a neighborhood emergency, and the calm, capable doctor who stepped in to help. That scene etched itself into her memory, not just as admiration, but as a calling. From then on, her teenage years were defined by single-minded focus. While others her age chased weekend adventures and carefree escapes, Maya kept to herself, surrounded by notes and textbooks. Her sacrifices paid off when she earned a place at one of the country's most prestigious medical schools. It marked a pivotal shift. On the day she left, her whole neighborhood turned out, relatives, friends, even passing acquaintances, to wish her well. The farewell wasn't just hers. It felt like she carried the hopes of an entire town. She embarked on her journey not only with her own dreams in hand, but with the unspoken expectations of everyone who had cheered her forward. Medical school didn't lighten the load, it made it heavier. The material was grueling, and Maya's own standards were even more demanding. Still, she excelled. Professors praised her relentless diligence. Peers respected her composed demeanor and quiet empathy. She struck a delicate balance between necessary detachment and genuine care. That balance became her hallmark, an early glimpse of the physician she was becoming. Then, in her third year, an unexpected encounter altered her course. One afternoon at the campus cafe, she stood behind Caleb, a business student, waiting in a sluggish line. His offhand joke about the delay sparked a conversation that stretched on longer than either anticipated. From that first meeting, he felt familiar. Where Maya carried the weight of ambition, Caleb radiated calm. His background was humble, his dreams just as big, but he approached life without rush. He listened deeply, noticed subtle details, and had a laugh that made the air lighter. Their chats soon turned into regular meetups, then shared meals, and gradually into something deeper. They became inseparable. There was a quiet reassurance in his presence, an unspoken vow that even in chaos, things would be all right. Maya, ever cautious, allowed herself to trust it. Love didn't distract her, it grounded her. As graduation neared, the idea of marriage surfaced naturally in their talks. Though they hadn't spent many years together, their bond felt seasoned and sure. Soon after finishing school, they married. The ceremony was simple but rich with sincerity. It felt less like a beginning and more like the culmination of something long in the making. They settled into life as partners. Responsibilities were shared, encouragement came freely, and future plans were drawn with mutual care. But even strong love can falter when left unattended. With time, the constant pressures, night shifts, looming deadlines, and career expectations began to chip away at their connection. Shared moments dwindled, replaced by exhaustion. Conversations became sparse, and the closeness in their eyes began to fade. The change was subtle at first, but it grew. Maya noticed. Still, she chalked it up to fatigue, ambition, and the inevitable strain of adult life. She didn't stop loving him. Her heart still leaned toward Caleb, but often he felt distant, physically present, yet emotionally unreachable. Despite it all, she kept showing up. She believed that love could endure rough seasons, that hardship was something to be weathered, not escaped. A glimmer of hope lingered, quiet but steady. So she made a minor adjustment. She joined a gym near the hospital. It was a practical decision, a way to move her body, clear her head, and perhaps reclaim a bit of herself. She couldn't have known how pivotal that one change would become. Until then, she thought the road ahead was bumpy but manageable. What she hadn't seen coming was the sharp turn that would soon appear, sudden, unyielding, and impossible to reverse. Her decision to sign up for the gym came almost on a whim. She needed movement, a way to escape the hollow quiet that had begun to fill her evenings. The hospital demanded everything, and home had become a place of silence. In the spaces left behind, she chose motion. During her second week there, Peter appeared again, a doctor she had once trained alongside during long rotations. Peter was everything loud and unmissable, charismatic, self-assured, and always the center of attention. He had a way of stepping into any room as though it belonged to him. He greeted her like an old friend, tossing out comments about residency, mutual acquaintances, and how odd it was to see each other outside hospital walls. Maya kept her replies measured, polite but distant. She wasn't seeking connection. Not then. But Peter didn't retreat. He lingered. He asked for help adjusting gym equipment, praised her form, and occasionally suggested they stretch together. His persistence was subtle, never pushy, but never absent. Maya took note but resisted. She dismissed it, proud of the boundary she maintained. But even as she told herself she was imagining it, something within her began to stir. A quiet tremor disrupted the stillness she had fought so hard to preserve. The balance was shifting, and she felt it. The hospital shifts felt endless, each one bleeding into the next, and the silence between Maya and Caleb grew more suffocating with each passing day. Night after night, she lay awake, haunted by the need to trace the beginning of their unraveling. Amid that slow disintegration, Peter entered her life like a sharp inhale. He brought with him an attentiveness, a spark of curiosity, a gentleness. He noticed the little things Caleb no longer saw and asked the kinds of questions Maya had nearly forgotten anyone could care to ask. That night, it started with a text. A small miscommunication between her and Caleb snowballed into a full argument. Neither of them had the energy or humility to walk it back. His last message, clipped and cold, remained on her screen as she headed to the gym. She pushed herself through her workout, trying to shake the tension, but her thoughts scattered with every breath. Then Peter showed up. He joked about how worn she looked, teased her about the way she sighed after each set, and then said something that stopped her in her tracks. She deserved to be truly seen. He hadn't said it lightly. His words were deliberate. Something inside her tightened. She hadn't meant for anything to happen, but in that fragile moment, with her defenses thinned, she didn't pull away. When the workout ended, they left together. What followed happened fast, too fast. Maya was acutely aware of every choice she made, of the consequences they carried. Still, she moved like someone detached from herself, like someone drawn to the edge just to feel something. The aftermath came hard, the crushing guilt, the bitter taste of intentional betrayal. She came home without a word, showered in the dark, and then sat motionless in the living room, staring at her reflection as if it belonged to someone else. Caleb was already asleep. He had no idea. She just sat there, silent, unblinking, as though something within her had slipped away. The next day, she went through the motions. She smiled at work, nodded at the right moments, pretended to listen to her patients. But beneath that surface, something inside her had shifted permanently. And then came the worst part. Peter started drawing attention. He made offhand comments, veiled jokes, just enough to stir suspicion without clarity. Word spread quickly. Within days, gossip had taken root in the hospital corridors. Some heard whispers, others simply sensed something. One of them was Blake, Caleb's close friend. He heard enough to put the puzzle together, and he didn't hesitate to tell Caleb. When Caleb learned the truth, he didn't shout. He didn't cry. His voice, when he called her, was empty, void of anger, emotionless. She breathed deeply and gave him the truth, unfiltered, unapologetic, just the bare, painful facts. He hung up without another word. When she got home later that day, a short note was all that remained. He was gone. The finality of it struck her like a blow. She dropped to the floor and stayed there, frozen, unable to move. Her world collapsed in an instant, and no one was left to pull her out of the wreckage. Everything she thought she had managed to contain now felt like it had detonated. What once seemed like a mistake now looked like a landslide, destroying everything in its path. But she didn't cry. She sat, hollow, observing the aftermath as if it belonged to someone else. Weeks passed. Then the test came. 2 lines. No reaction, no tears, no joy, just a heavy stillness. She stared at the result, waiting for it to change, to fade, to make sense. She sat at the edge of her bed, paralyzed. It wasn't just unexpected, it was a shockwave in the middle of chaos. Her thoughts wandered to Caleb, his voice, that last call. She debated whether telling him would matter, whether it could possibly change anything. After hours lost in uncertainty, she called. He answered. His tone was distant, cold. She said it plainly. She was pregnant. It was his. Silence followed. Then he asked quietly if she was certain. She said yes. He breathed out, told her he didn't know what to do with that information, and ended the call. She didn't reach out again. She didn't plead. She knew that some things can't be fixed, not even with time. In the days that followed, she moved cautiously, planning each decision. She informed the hospital and adjusted her schedule accordingly. People whispered, but no one said anything directly to her. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, physically at least. She kept up with appointments, followed her diet, read about parenting during her breaks. But she had no one to share it with. So she turned to an old notebook tucked away in a drawer. She wrote down her thoughts, fears, dreams, each entry a quiet hope that her child would arrive safely and always know love. Peter noticed the change in her early on. After a session one afternoon, he tried to engage her, still wearing that familiar, confident smile. He asked if she was doing okay. She looked him in the eyes and told him she was pregnant. His expression faltered. The color drained from his face. He didn't ask who the father was, and she didn't offer. He gave her a brief, awkward well-wish and walked away. That silence spoke volumes. In that moment, Maya saw him clearly. He was the kind of man who thrived in pursuit, but vanished when accountability arrived. She never spoke to him again, and with that, the last trace of guilt left her. As her belly grew and her body changed, people began to take notice. Some asked carefully worded questions, trying to gauge whether there was someone by her side. Maya met each one with quiet composure. She carried on, alone, yes, but no longer hiding from her past or from the choices she had made. Some observed in silence, keeping their opinions unspoken. Yet she met their eyes without flinching, drew in a steady breath, and pressed on. From childhood, she'd understood that waiting for others to validate her choices was no way to shape a future. Events moved swiftly. She arrived at the hospital as night was falling, and only a few hours later, her baby entered the world. His cry rang out, strong and unyielding, and his serious little face brought a rare smile to Maya's lips, one she hadn't felt in a long while. As she studied the infant in her arms, a wave of recognition surged through her. His face bore an uncanny resemblance to someone she once knew intimately. It felt as though Caleb's presence had found a home in the child now sleeping against her chest. Without hesitation, she named him Caleb Jr., a quiet affirmation of the truth she carried in her heart. There was no need for evidence or confirmation. Even if the name stirred gossip or deepened the rift between them, her conviction was unwavering. Motherhood unearthed a strength within her that she hadn't realized she possessed. Inside her modest apartment, she prepared for everything alone, setting up the crib, folding tiny clothes, organizing bottles and blankets. Each task was done with careful attention and a quiet determination. She brought her son to every doctor's visit, pushed the stroller along crowded sidewalks, and faced endless nights of crying and fatigue, without a partner to share the load. Through it all, she didn't break. She didn't linger in regret or feed the ache of what could have been. Meanwhile, Caleb threw himself into his daily routine. He worked long hours, accepted every social invitation, and carefully sidestepped anything that might stir the past. Still, beneath the surface, a quiet emptiness began to take root. He couldn't stop thinking about the baby, about Maya, and about all the crossroads where he might have chosen differently. He kept replaying the day she told him she was pregnant, searching for some hint of manipulation, some excuse for his retreat. But each time, he came up empty. Occasionally, he would check her social media in silence, scrolling through her updates. There were never any clear shots of the baby's face, just fleeting, tender scenes. He read every comment, scanned the reactions, and felt the ache of being outside a life that once might have been his. A family was growing without him, and he had no idea how to process that fact. Time marched on, but his pride held firm. He told himself he needed certainty, proof, clarity, something solid. But what haunted him more than anything was the undeniable truth that no matter how far he stayed away, he remained a part of the story. His body was absent, but his heart stayed tethered to what he had left behind. With each passing week, the emotional distance he had cultivated began to crumble. Their separate lives circled each other like distant planets, linked by a thread no one else could see. Sooner or later, that quiet connection would call out for resolution. Because real love, no matter how bruised or complicated, has a way of returning, though often through the fire of pain. 7 months after Caleb Jr.'s birth, Maya's life had found a steady, quiet beat. Her days were packed with the rhythms of motherhood, every moment accounted for. But inside, a different peace had taken root. She no longer waited for apologies or imagined what reconciliation might look like. She had grown familiar with the space he'd left behind. It was like a scar that had healed over, present, but no longer raw. What she didn't realize was that change was drawing near. That same morning, a medical conference brought together alumni and staff for a series of talks on complex case studies. She considered skipping it. Sleep had been scarce. Caleb Jr. had been restless all night, and getting out of the house with a baby required a small miracle. Still, something inside urged her to go. She wrapped her son in a soft blanket, his cheek nestled against her shoulder, and made her way to the venue. She exchanged brief nods and polite smiles with acquaintances, keeping mostly to the edges of the crowd. During one of the lectures, as she sat quietly listening, a late group filtered into the room. She felt their presence before she turned, and then she saw him. Caleb was there. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She turned to face him. He looked thinner, more introspective, but his gaze still held that familiar intensity. Their eyes met and held a moment too long before he looked away. Then his gaze landed on the baby resting against her. He stopped cold. For a heartbeat, the world tilted. As the lecture ended and people began to disperse, Maya gathered her things to leave. But then she heard her name. She turned. He was only a few steps away. Their eyes locked again, the silence stretching between them. Caleb was the first to speak. "He's mine." Her voice was steady. "See for yourself." He stepped closer, his attention fixed on the child. The resemblance struck him with startling clarity. The shape of the eyes, the angle of the nose, even the subtle curve of the chin. It was like looking into a mirror from years ago. His hand shook. That night he sent her a message asking to meet. She replied with a time and place. They met at a quiet cafe tucked away from familiar faces. He didn't waste time. He asked for a paternity test. She wasn't surprised. She agreed immediately. No theatrics, no bitterness. Her calm acceptance unsettled him more than tears ever could. The results came back quickly. There was no room for doubt. The child was his. The truth stood firm, undeniable. Caleb asked for space, a moment to process what stepping into this life might mean. Maya didn't push. She told him the door was open, but no one would force him through it. That was his decision to make. In the days that followed, he began to return. It began innocently enough, just a brief stop to check in on the baby, no expectations, no strings. Soon there were tiny gestures, a quick trip to grab formula, a pack of wipes, an extra few minutes spent lingering at the door. Gradually, almost without noticing, they were sitting together again, cartoons playing in the background, laughing at life's little quirks, preparing simple meals side by side. Healing didn't announce itself with dramatic speeches or sweeping declarations of love. It crept in softly, woven through consistent acts of care, meaningful silences, and the quiet realization that while the past had left its scars, those wounds didn't have to dictate what came next. They each bore the burden of what had been. The hurt hadn't vanished, and they didn't pretend otherwise. But beneath the pain was something steady, a shared desire to try anew. Over time, they settled into something resembling a life together. A new pattern began to emerge, imperfect, sometimes uneasy. There were moments of hesitation, echoes of old fears, and days that stretched their patience thin. But scattered among those challenges were unguarded laughs, peaceful nights, and the calm certainty of raising a child in a home rebuilt from struggle. When Caleb's birthday arrived, Maya prepared a simple dinner. No guests, no celebration, just the three of them. Caleb Jr. wore a shirt with his dad's name and bound it over with a small box wrapped in bright paper. Inside was a leather keychain, engraved with a single word: family. Caleb looked at it, a quiet astonishment lighting up his face. He began to speak, to thank them. But Maya interrupted gently. "That's not the real present," she said. "The gift is this: United States, you being here." He turned the keychain over in his hands, as though it might shatter under too much pressure. He looked at the two faces in front of him and gave a calm, warm smile. "The best gift," he said, "is already right here." And in that moment, something settled between them, deeper than language, deeper than time. No pride, no regret, could erase what had just been reclaimed. Their history was marked by difficulty, but the foundation was strong. That night, the truth was unmistakable. Some families aren't born from flawlessness. They're born from courage, from forgiveness, and from the quiet, relentless act of staying, even when it would have been easier to walk away.